There is a phrase that gets used a lot. Name it to tame it. It sounds like a catchy slogan. And I understand why people roll their eyes at catchy slogans. But this one is built on a genuinely significant piece of neuroscience. And when you understand the mechanism behind it, I think it stops sounding like a slogan and starts sounding like one of the most practical tools we have. The art of naming what is happening in your body. Not just, I feel bad, but specifically, precisely, accurately naming the quality of your felt experience measurably reduces the activity in your amygdala. It shifts processing from your reactive brain to the observing brain. In other words, understanding what's happening changes what's happening. That's the second step of the YUSR method. And today I want to show you exactly how it works. Here's something I see constantly in the women I work with. They come in dysregulated, anxious, flat, overwhelmed. And when I ask them what's happening in their body, they say, I don't know. I just feel terrible. I feel like something's wrong, but I can't name it. And the unnameable quality is itself the part of the problem. Because what the nervous system can't categorize, it continues to treat as a potential threat. The vague and unnamed experience stays in the amygdala, the brain alarm system, rather than moving into the prefrontal cortex, where it can be processed and integrated. Understanding in the YUSR framework is the act of bringing that vague, unnamed experience into language, into specificity, into something that the brain can actually work with. And the research suggests this isn't just emotionally useful, it is neurologically transformative. The research I'm drawing on here is primarily the work of Matthew Lieberman and his colleagues at UCLA, specifically a series of studies using functional magnetic resonance imaging to observe what happens in the brain when people label their emotional experiences. What they found out is this. When participants were shown images designed to trigger a negative emotional response, faces expressing fear or anger or distressing situations, their amygdala activated as expected. But when the participants were asked to put a word to what they were feeling, to label the emotion, amygdala activation significantly decreased and activity increased in the right ventrolateral prefrontal cortex, part of the brain associated with emotional regulation and deliberate processing. I know this is too scientifically specific, but please bear with me for a moment. Because what I want to say is that the act of naming moved the experience from a reactive brain to a regulatory brain. And this wasn't subtle, it was a measurable, consistent, replicable shift in the brain in response to a word. That is why name it to tame it is not just a slogan. It's a description of a neurological process. The name is doing something. It's creating a pathway from threat detection to integration. Not all naming is equally useful. And this is where I want to go a little deeper than the standard advice. I feel bad is a name, but it's not a precise one, and precision matters. Researchers have studied what they call emotional granularity, a degree of specificity with which people can describe their emotional and physical states. And the finding is consistent. People with higher emotional granularity who can distinguish between similar states, who can name a specific quality of what they are feeling, have better emotional regulation, low rates of depression and anxiety, and a more effective response to stress. So, the difference between I feel anxious and I feel a tight buzz in the chest with a kind of hollow quality underneath it. And my thoughts are moving very fast. That difference is not just descriptive, it is regulatory. The more precisely you can name it, the more the brain can do with it. In the YUSR framework, understand goes beyond emotional labeling into nervous system literacy. It means being able to identify not just what you're feeling emotionally, but which state your nervous system is in. Are you in a sympathetic activation, the fight and flight end of the spectrum? It typically feels like racing thoughts, tight chest, restlessness, urgency, and a sense of impending something, irritability, shallow, rapid breath. Or are you in a dorsal vagal shutdown, the freeze or collapse end? This feels like heaviness, flatness, difficulty in thinking, numbness, a sense of watching your own life from outside, the exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix, and a kind of grayness over everything. Or are you somewhere in the between, a mixed state, oscillating, neither fully activated nor fully shut down? Knowing which state you are in is essential for the third stage. Seek. Because different states require entirely different interventions. What helps a sympathetically activated nervous system is often opposite to what helps a dorsal vagal one. If you are in shutdown and you try to meditate your way into calm, it won't help. Shutdown needs activation, not further quieting. If you are in sympathetic activation and you go for an intense run to release the energy, you might find that running winds you up rather than calms you down. Understanding your state is the map. Without the map, every intervention is a guess. There is a fourth dimension of understand that I want to name because it's often the most transformative and the least familiar. Most of us have been trained to understand our experience from the neck up, to think about what's happening, to analyze, to reflect, to narrate. Body based understanding asks a different question. Instead of asking, why do I feel this way? I ask, where is this in my body? What is the texture? What is the temperature? Does it have a shape? Does it have a color? Does it move or does it stay still? These questions sound strange the first time you hear them. They become less strange very quickly because the body turns out to be surprisingly willing to answer them. What body based inquiry does is that it brings the experience out of the abstract and into the tangible. A grief that is a vague weight becomes a heavy, still, grey presence in the middle of the chest, about the size of a fist, warm on the edges and cold in the middle. The grief has now been named specifically, precisely in the language of the body. And this naming, as the research shows, changes what the brain does with it. The practice I want to give you this week is a daily check in, and I call it a 3-layer scan. Once a day, ideally in the moment when you notice something shifting in your body. But it can also be a set time. Ask yourself 3 questions. First, what is the quality of my breath right now? Shallow or full? Fast or slow? High in the chest or low in the belly? Just notice. One sentence. Second, what is the quality of the sensation in my body? Pick the most prominent one. Name it as specifically as you can. Tight, buzzy, hollow, heavy, still, contained. Name where it lives. Give it at least one more adjective beyond tense or fine. Third, which nervous system state am I in right now? Activated, fight or flight end. Shutdown, flat, grey, numbing. Or something that feels relatively okay. 3 questions, 1 minute, done daily for a week, and your ability to understand your own nervous system will have shifted measurably. You will begin to know yourself in a different way. On Saturday, I'll guide you through a full body scan and inquiry sequence that takes this three-layer check and expands it to a complete practice. It is one of the practices I return to consistently, and I think it will give you a felt experience of what understand actually means. You cannot regulate a nervous system you don't understand, and you cannot understand a nervous system you won't turn towards. That is why yield comes first and why understand comes second. Each step opens the door to the next. Leave me a comment this week. What's the one state you experience regularly that you've never had an accurate word for? I read every comment, and those answers often become future videos. I'll see you Saturday.